Hello and welcome to this edition of Conversation. I'm your host, Dave Heisey, and today's show we will discuss the ninth grade experience at Scotch Plains-Fanwood High School. Assembled with me today are some members of the ninth grade or freshman class of Scotch Plains-Fanwood High School. So first thing I'd like to do is introduce our guests. As I said before, everyone is a member of the freshman class. We're going to start to my right, and we'll start with Ted Sensor. Sitting next to Ted is Jamie Kay. Next to Jamie is Darren Brown. And then sitting to my immediate left is Mrs. Raskavich. Mrs. Raskavich is not a member of the freshman class, but rather a member of the school counseling department. She's a guidance counselor at Scotch Plains-Fanwood High School. Next to Mrs. Raskavich is Steve Tavares. Next to Steve is Eileen Cole. And next to Eileen is Crystal the Beauty. Okay. The purpose of this show, and really the target audience of this show, would be students that are presently at Park Middle School or Terrell Middle School, and the parents of any students that are in 8th grade. And we're going to talk a little bit about the ninth grade experience. The students that are sitting here today, they've been at the high school for since September, so it's been September, October, and almost all of November. So for 3 months, they've been freshmen at the high school, and what we'd like to do is just get their reflections and their feedback on how their freshman year has gone, how well we've prepared them for their freshman year, and maybe get some suggestions for what we could do further. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with some questioning, and some of my questions I'll just ask, and maybe one of the students will just have an answer and engage conversation. Other questions I may simply direct to a student, which in this case I'm going to direct my first question to Ted Sensor. And what I'm really going to ask Ted is his general impressions of the high school. It's a real general question, and really, how has your freshman year been going so far? Ted?
Well, I like the high school a lot. I feel that a lot of the teachers are friendly, and they're really willing to get to know the students and help us out whenever necessary. Basically, my freshman year has been going pretty good. There's no real problems. I mean, at first it was really easy to get lost, but we had that little buddy thing, the buddy system for the first 2 days, so that helped out a lot. And after that, it was pretty much easy. It got easier as time went on. Now I know my way around the high school pretty well. I haven't gotten lost yet, and that makes me pretty happy. And so far the year's been good.
Okay. Jamie, how about you? Just first impressions so far after 3 months, freshman year, how's it going?
I like it also. I'm having a lot of fun. I also like my teachers, and it was hard to find your way around in the beginning, but after a day or so, it got pretty easy to figure out what you were doing.
Okay, good. Darren?
I also liked the high school too. In the beginning, I really couldn't find my classes, but then I got used to them as the school year went on, and I learned different routes and different ways to get there.
Okay. Steve?
I also like the high school too. After about a month into it, I kind of got in the flow of school, and I felt I was more fitting in here at high school.
Okay. Eileen?
I like it as well. It was confusing at first. I thought it was interesting how the classes, it wasn't only freshmen, but it was a mix of other grades, which is a change, which I like, and I got used to it after a while. I like the buddy system.
Okay, good. Crystal?
I love the high school. Everybody's been really friendly. I got lost a few times, but I figured that was normal. It was a little tough the first few weeks, trying to get around, figuring out what your classes were and what you had to do. But other than that, it's been pretty cool so far.
Okay, good. Tell me a little bit about how different the high school is from the middle school. Obviously, the whole philosophy is different between middle school and high school. But if you were to talk to a present 8th grader and they were to ask you a question such as how is the high school different from the middle school? What would your answer be? Anyone want to? Ted?
I could say that the high school, first of all, it's a lot bigger, and that's the biggest difference. Is it's a lot bigger, And because of that, things like in middle school, like your teachers are part of like your personal life. You see them like 2 or 3 times a day in the halls when you're walking to your different classes and stuff. Like now I see my teachers during class time and then I rarely see them during the day. So it's like it's got a less personal feeling to it, but a more independent feeling, which I kind of like because you feel like you can do more. Like it's more about like what you do rather than someone else is making you do like what they want you to do, you know?
Okay, all right. Anyone else? How the high school differs from the middle school? Steve?
Well, one difference is that there's a lot more people here. In middle school, I kind of knew everybody in my grade or in 7th and 8th grade. Here, it's a big difference, and there's a lot of new people here, and that's one of the big differences in high school.
Okay. All right, so definitely larger. It's a larger facility, no question. Really, the high school's twice the size of one or either Park or Terrell, because it really is a combination of the two in 9th grade. Anyone else? Other differences that the high school has? How the high school differs, contrasts from the middle school? Eileen.
The deadline of the work, like they're much strict. I like it because then some people can't slack off. That could, and it makes you work harder because it's either you have it in today or you don't. And it used to be easier. And I've seen the difference between the grading system in the middle school to the high school.
Okay. All right. Anyone else? Darren?
There's also I noticed something that's different. Like if you're late for a class, or if you're late coming into the school, you'll get like detention. And I really wasn't used to that at the Park Middle School, so it was like a big change. You gotta get in school earlier.
Okay. Punctuality, that is an emphasis at the high school, and because we are an institution that does a number of things. We're preparing you for college. We're preparing you for what lays beyond, and ultimately, once you are finished with your formal education, wherever that may take you, you're going to be in the workforce, and you'll be expected to report to work on time. So punctuality is a very important part of the high school experience, among many other things. Any other things before we go on to our next point? Any other contributions? Okay, Steve.
I thought there was a lot more opportunities at the high school, as in after-school activities. There was more of a chance, and more people tried to get you to join these activities. In the middle school, I really wasn't joining any clubs, but in high school, I'm involved in multiple clubs.
Okay. All right, Steve, thanks. I'm sure all of you, and what I need you to do now is think back to when you were an 8th grader, and maybe as the end of your 8th grade year approached, and you knew, and the high school was an experience that you knew was just around the corner. Think of things you were told about the high school from people who may not have been affiliated with the school district. What misinformation were you given, or what were you told about the high school? No, I take that back, not misinformation. What were you told about the high school, and were you given the accurate information? What were you expecting, and were your expectations, did they come true? Were your expectations not met? What were you expecting when you walked in, based on what you were told?
One thing I was told is that freshmen were really, really like unimportant, and that like no one was gonna talk to us, and the teachers weren't gonna like care about us. And when it came to like everything, that freshmen were just not cared about, and that to a degree is true, but not really, because I feel that we're on the same level of respect. It depends on how much the teacher knows you. If you're a new student and you're just sitting in class, you're going to get the same amount of respect as a new sophomore who's just sitting in class. But if you try and get yourself known, then the teacher, they give you more respect. It doesn't really matter if you're a freshman or not. It's how well known you are, Okay.
All right, Ted, thanks. Anyone else? Your not first impressions, but rather things that you were told, what you were expecting before you walked into the high school. Anyone else want to throw in there? Crystal.
Well, I was told that it was just going to be like the middle school, only bigger.
Mm-hmm.
And I was expecting that, and when I walked in, it wasn't.
Okay.
It's a lot tougher. It was harder to get around, for one thing. I feel as if everybody was a lot nicer.
Okay.
I mean, everybody was nice in the middle school, but people were more willing to help you out here.
Okay.
So that's what I found.
Jamie?
Also, like, a lot of older kids told you to, like, watch out for, like, the seniors, and but it's not really true. Everybody seems, like, really nice, especially in, like, chorus. We have class with, like, all the grades, and everyone treats everyone just as everyone else is. Like, everybody's the same.
Okay, good. Anyone else? Expectations, what you were told coming in and what exactly happened?
Well,
Okay.
of course everyone told us about the pool and the elevator.
Okay.
But we all know that's not true.
Well, hopefully the elevator will be true in the very near future, but the
That'd be
pool,
nice.
right, I wouldn't, you have to go down to the Y's, that's where our pool is situated. All right, good. Well, obviously, we try to devote as much time as we can to the transition from 8th grade to 9th grade, and that's one of the primary reasons why Mrs. Ruscavage is here. And what I'm going to ask Mrs. Ruscavage to do is to just elaborate on a couple of the common, maybe common experiences. I don't want to use necessarily the word problems, but things that she hears from 9th graders, the common themes that a 9th grader may encounter. Their first few months of school, maybe for their first full year of school, and then maybe we can see if any of those directly relate to some of our guests. So, Mrs. Ruscavage, any common themes that you often see?
Well, I think when we see our freshmen first month or so, I think most freshmen are surprised at the amount of work that is assigned and the expectations. I think Eileen mentioned that there are, there are certain deadlines that have to be met, and that's the way it is here. And it's much more difficult academically than the middle school. Do you guys agree with that? Is that a true assessment of the work here?
Yeah.
Okay.
The homework, you get a lot more homework every night.
Yeah.
I would say 3 or 4 hours of homework.
Wow. Okay.
So it's definitely a lot different
So
than middle
what do you
schools.
learn to do with that kind of homework?
Manage your time.
Yeah, you have to manage your time. Sometimes you have to cut down on activities. You have to discipline yourself more. It's harder to get it all done, but
Rearrange your sleeping schedule.
yeah,
Okay.
you definitely have to rearrange the sleep.
What about in the actual classroom? How you manage yourself to whether it's taking notes or asking questions?
Definitely, you got to take more notes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like all of the first couple weeks of school, I sat there and as the teacher was talking, I didn't realize we were supposed to take all the notes down. And then we got a quiz and I was like, we never learned any of this. And she was like, well, you were supposed to be taking notes while I was talking. And I just didn't realize that. And you just got to realize in the high school, you got to take everything down. It's just, you can't sit there and not pay attention.
Okay. Anybody else about that?
Then you also have to, like, try your hardest on everything you do, because every test, like, at the end of the marking period counts. So if you, like, slack off on one quiz, that's going to affect your end of the marking period grade, so you have to study hard for each thing.
You have to study for all the tests. Like in middle school, I didn't study for any tests except like science and social studies sometimes when I really didn't understand the stuff. But if you don't study for these tests, like they'll throw on stuff that's just like little unimportant stuff, well, stuff you would think is unimportant, and they do that just to make sure you studied. So you have to study. You have to actually work in time to study, you know? It's not.
Okay, so what we try to stress as counselors is that everything counts now. I mean, colleges are going to see your grades, your GPA begins to be calculated, so it is very important to study for each test. Also, what we try to do is teach you how to sort of people skills to work with your teachers. Have any of you had any experiences of that sort of working with a teacher, going for extra help, talking to a teacher after class?
Well, I had a Spanish test one time. And I really didn't understand it, so I went to my Spanish teacher after school, and she gave me extra help on, like, what we need to learn on the test and, like, what it was gonna to be about.
You found that helpful,
Mm.
right? That's anybody else that have a
I've been to extra help a few times with the geometry teacher, and it helps a lot because instead of being like 25 kids in a class, it's one-on-one, and it's helpful.
Okay. Did you want to say something?
I was just going to say what Eileen said. Geometry is not my area, so I have to go in for help as much as possible, and they're really nice about it, and I understand it a lot better now.
Okay.
And also, my math teacher, she'll tell us like a day before that she'll be in like early in the morning, or she'll either stay after school to help us, and that's very helpful. We get extra help.
Okay, we also, in our session, try to explain what type of courses you're going to take over the next 4 years, the programs of study, okay, what's expected of you, so you get an idea of where you're going, okay, education-wise. Have you found that to be helpful, so you see the end in sight, the goals that you have? Yes. Okay.
Well, that's where being a freshman comes into play, because as a freshman, you get last picked your classes. And you kind of, if you don't pick your classes early, you kind of get filled in. Like one of my friends is in a class she doesn't want to take, and that really, she's doing bad in that class because she didn't get first pick, and she didn't send in her stuff early enough or something. So if you don't send in, at the end of the year, when the 8th graders get their sheets as to what classes they want to take, the earlier you get it in, the better. That's one thing to remember.
And I think it's an important point in that a freshman's schedule differs dramatically from that of a senior. And most freshmen, the courses that you're enrolled in are required courses. So it's not a matter of, I mean, there are electives, there is room for electives, but there'll be more room for electives as you get closer and into your senior year. So there may be some classes that, at least at the onset, a student may not have wanted to take or have been interested in taking, but quite often by the mid-year or the end of the year, they're very happy there and they're very excited about that course. And that's another thing about the high school is that it's very important that you become a well-rounded student and develop your strengths. And there may be certain areas where you either aren't comfortable with, but as your high school experience goes on, you'll become more and more comfortable, and you may like that particular discipline, be it mathematics or science, and it's a great opportunity. It's an excellent proving ground for nurturing some of those multiple intelligences that you have, and some of those areas where you don't think you're strong, but you may be strong in. Okay.
What about clubs or activities? That's another aspect of our program for freshmen, is that we try to encourage you to become involved in clubs. I think you touched on that a little bit. Have you found that to be helpful, joining clubs, getting a part of the school community in a way?
Yeah,
clubs
are great because you get to know all the upperclassmen, and the more upperclassmen you know, kind of the easier the regular school day gets. Because like they'll help you out with stuff, like if you're in lunch or something, and you know an upperclassman, you get moved up in the lunch line. They might let you they might have been holding a spot for you basically. It's just the clubs it's a great opportunity, and you got to take advantage of it. And the more clubs you're in, the better your school life is going to be.
Sure. Anyone else want to comment on that? At all? Or athletics? Is anyone an athlete?
Football. Yeah, I'm an athlete. And the football is great. All the one of the great things about the high school is the athletics program. It really it's good. Join sports, become an athlete.
Okay.
What are some other clubs that any of us might be involved with, Jamie?
I'm in AFS, which is a group where exchange students go for a weekend, and we're taking them to New York and ice skating and to the semi-formal. So that's fun. And I'm also in Lost Con and Select Chorus, which are courses that you try out for in the beginning of the year. And there's a few freshmen in it. It's mostly seniors, juniors, some sophomores.
That's very good. Anyone else? Crystal?
I'm in club, and I'm in Lost Com with Jamie, which is great because these are all things I like to do. I like to write, I like to act, I like to sing. So it gets to broaden my horizons a little. I get to do what I like to.
Tell the viewers about Muse, for people that don't know.
Muse is the school magazine. I don't know a whole lot about it. I know it was rated one of the best in the state or the nation.
In the nation?
Really?
Yes.
See, it's a good magazine. It includes poetry, short stories, just pictures and photographs that the kids in the school take. They put it all together in this magazine that comes out once a year. But it's really worthwhile. I like it. It's great.
Okay, super. Eileen, I saw your hand.
I am in SCN, which is Students Concerned for the Needy, and show choir. They're fun. It takes up time, which is like time for before and after school, which gets you involved with the people and you get to know some teachers more. And for SCN, I'm starting to get involved in it more and more, but parts of it just like it broadens your horizon and it makes you feel like important. Some things like SCN, it's great just to like help like the needy and just like contribute to their lives.
Okay.
I'm in JSA and FBLA, and those are both. Well, JSA is like it's kind of like a debate club, and that's fun if you like to voice your opinion about things. It's really interactive with the students. It's run by students, so that's a good club to join if you like voicing your opinion. And I'm in FBLA, which is Future Business Leaders of America, and if you like business and stuff, that's a good club to join.
Okay, good. Anyone else want to talk? Steve?
I'm also in JSA, and I find that interesting because everybody debates and it's fun to watch.
Right.
And I'm also in Model UN, and during the middle of the year we get to go to New York, see the United Nations, and it sounds very interesting.
Okay. Tell us a little bit about JSA.
JSA, it's a club, basically what Ted said, it's a debate club. And you see people, whoever wants to go up can debate on a certain subject for the pro side of it or the con side of it, and that's basically what it is.
Okay.
It's run by students.
But you and it's junior statesmen, so it's a nationwide club, and you have competitions, in New Jersey and on the East Coast. So it's you take your skills, you fine tune your skills here, and take them to the competitive arena, right?
Yes.
I am also in SCN along with Eileen, and I mean Students Concerned for the Needy, and it's a good program because it kind of not teaches you, but I really don't know how to explain it, but helps you go along with like the less fortunate people. And like on Mondays, you go to a church called Mount Zion Lutheran Church. It's in Clark, and you make sandwiches there, and they put them into like a truck and they ship it to like a homeless shelter, and also just like teach you responsibility and how people less fortunate are.
Okay, thanks. A very common question that I'm asked from parents of 8th graders. Usually it's maybe at the beginning of the year at the 8th grade orientation, and that is when we get on to the subject of clubs and activities, the parents will ask me or the students will ask me, how will my son get to know the clubs? I mean, we've been here 3 months, and every one of you is involved in more than one club. I mean, all of you. I mean, you've rattled off several clubs, boom, that you're involved with. How in the world did all this happen in 3 months? I mean, how'd you do it?
Well, in the beginning of the school year, they have a freshman orientation, and that introduces you into the different clubs, and that's where you can sign up and join there.
Okay, all right. Jamie, was that what you were going to say, or?
And then also, my neighbor, who is a junior, she was involved in different clubs, and that's how I got involved with AFS. So through other people you know.
Uh-huh. Okay. Anyone else? Yes.
It's
Eileen.
just everywhere. On the morning announcements, you hear people talking about clubs that are going to be held after school, and in folders that we got at the beginning of the year, they're listed. And there was at the beginning of the year, we had a freshman orientation where you learned more about them. And it's just everyone's talking about them all the time, so it's hard to miss them.
All right, so it's just a great deal of stimulation. You just it's just the information's out there. Posters also throughout the school. I know, just if you pay attention to the announcements, if you see the posters, you'll and if you're interested, you'll just get to the meeting, and the rest is history, as all of you are evidence of that. Let's talk about. We'll start with what you like most about the high school. I just need you to pick one thing. What's the one thing about the high school you like the most?
I have.
Eileen?
Well, I didn't like history as much as I do now. I like what we're studying, and just the teacher, Mr. Tubbs. He's great. He makes it interesting. So probably history became more exciting.
All right, hats off to Mr. Tubbs. Well, I'll make sure I'll pass it on to him. Anyone else?
The student involvement. Just the fact that we have more say in what happens to us, and we have more say in what we do, and we have more say in what we want to do, and it's the student involvement is probably the best aspect of the high school, I would say.
Okay.
Rather than people deciding for you, you get to choose what you're doing and how it's done and when it's done and stuff like that.
Okay. Anyone else? What they like most? What comes to mind? All right. Yes.
Kind of
Kristen?
hard to nail it down to one thing, but
Okay.
I actually kind of like the after-school clubs, because in middle school I didn't do a whole lot, and now I have a lot more freedom to do it. I have a lot more time. I feel a lot better because I get to hang out with my friends after school and do something worthwhile.
Okay. One comment that I'll often get is the general statement at the high school you're more on your own, you're more of a number, if you will. I know Ted earlier had mentioned about the impersonality of the high school, but then you kind of clarified that and said it's really not impersonal, it's larger, and because it's larger it may appear to be a less personal, and in some ways it is. I mean, high schools are, it's a very large high school, but I guess my question would deal with how is the high school different from middle school in that regard, in terms of its sheer size and its personality, the school culture, Just go ahead.
Like you said that they say that we're only a number.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the only way you're going to be only a number is if you sit back in class and you don't talk and you don't get involved and you don't get recognized. But as soon as teachers start recognizing you, other teachers start recognizing you, and administrators recognize you, and it's basically, if you don't want to be recognized, you won't be. But if you want people to know who you are, then they're going to know who you are. So it's all about the individual person and how they act towards the whole individuality and personality of the school.
Okay. All right. Anyone else? The school culture. How would you describe the culture, the lifeblood, the life world of the high school?
It is also good to be friendly with your friends, and also with you, Dr. Heisey. At first, I'll see you in the hallway and I might say hi, and then as the school went on, I got to know you better, and just be friendly, and it's good.
Okay. All right. Yeah, it takes time. It takes time to get to know, especially a freshman class. That's over 300 students, and as we said, it's a large high school. Well, I asked you about things you liked about the high school. Now think about things you might change. And I'm not. I certainly don't want you. Just think of things that what would you change about it? What suggestions? And Crystal?
Being late policy.
Okay. Yeah, we're not going to elaborate on this, but that's okay. Because if you're late for class, you get detention, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What else?
I would say the time frame. I think school it starts earlier than middle school does, and that's the first thing you got to recognize. So you have to wake up earlier. I know some of my friends that wake up at 6 in the morning just so they can get ready to go to school. So you have to wake up a lot earlier, and that could affect you if you go to bed too late due to homework or something.
Okay, so if you have an AM class, your day starts. You have an AM class? Crystal, how's that? How's your AM class?
It's pretty good. It's weight training, so I don't have to really think in the mornings. Just lift, put it down, lift, put it down. But it prepares me for the day. I get, energy and physically pumped, so
Okay.
I feel pretty good by first period.
All right. Anyone else? Anyone else about changes? Modifications, Steve?
I think there should be more stairwells in the places where most people walk, because it takes a long time to get up and down the stairs when there's a lot of people walking around. And you get bumped around a lot.
Okay. All right. Eileen?
I'd probably have to say the lunch periods. Like, I know that a lot of times you can't help it, but I have lunch period 8.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like lots of time. By the time period 4 or 5 for me, I get like tired and I need something to eat, but it's not possible. So I think that it may help if the lunches there's one I think 4, 6, and then if there was one like in the middle of those, like 5, if the lunches were back to back instead of skipping, because
Right, we have 3 lunches, 4, 6, and 8, basically. So, and if you have 8 lunch, you're eating. That's the last lunch, and it is later in the day, and I'm sure your stomach's growling. And okay, yeah. That's anyone else about changes or modifications?
That made me think. We're not allowed to have food or water or anything in a bottle or bag or anything outside of the cafeteria. So if you don't eat in the mornings and you have period 8 lunch like me and Eileen do, then you're going to be really hungry. So one of the things that's bad is we're not allowed to have food if we're hungry.
or just like a drink or something,
Yeah.
just to keep you, because it may get out of hand. Like if you say, yeah, you can have food, then people are throwing it in the halls and stuff. But if we were allowed to by our teachers in class, like bring something.
Okay. All right. I had mentioned earlier that the transition from the 8th grade to the 9th grade is something that we put emphasis on, and we're involved. We try to do a number of activities to nurture that, and I would ask each of you, what have we done that helped you, or what was one of, or maybe 2 of, or what were some of the most beneficial activities that you remember that helped you in your transition, that we organize activities that we as a school, either at the middle school or at the high school, were beneficial?
Well, one thing was that when you come to freshman rotation, you have I think it's called the Big Buddy, where they show you around where your classes are. And I think that if we didn't have them, and if they didn't have freshman rotation, if you came on the first day of school and you tried to get to your classes, you'd be kind of lost because you have the old section and new section, and it might get kind of confusing. So I think it's kind of good they have that program.
Okay, Big Brother, Big Sister is yeah, exactly. You teamed up with another student. Okay, Eileen.
I liked how instead of at the end of 8th grade going to the summer, we had the orientation or the tour around the high school at the end, like right before you go to freshman, so it's fresh in your memory.
Okay.
And you know where you are, opposed to just getting it at the end of June in 8th grade, because I don't think I would remember if
Okay,
it was.
so
I
that
like
walk
that
that walk
difference.
through in August, right
Mhm.
before school starts. Okay.
One of the things that really helped me find my classes during the first couple weeks of school was I think a teacher told me that the new section is all the 100s and the old section is all the 200s, and the downstairs is all below 50 numbers and the upstairs all above 50 numbers.
Well, that's not necessarily the case. So,
Oh.
but you have it all figured out now, anyway, right?
Yeah, but
Okay.
I don't know. When I found that out, that really helped me find my classes. So.
Okay.
that-
Yeah. Basically, there's a cutoff. You have to know. Okay, when a certain set of numbers end, and the new set starts in the other section, wherever you're at in the old or the new. That's right. But getting to know the numbering system, and the key is, of course, for the most part, you have the same classes all year, unless you have semester classes. So once you get yourself established in a semester, it becomes a routine to a large extent, right? It becomes a routine. Anything else that we do as a school organization that really helped us out? All right. Yes, Crystal.
Those little maps they gave us at orientation, those helped a ton. Because like the night before school started, I took different colored markers and kind of traced routes to my classes. And I dotted the schedule that you guys gave me too, so I could match them up. And it helped a lot.
Okay, good.
So
Good.
that was good.
Any others?
Well, another thing that is also good, how like sometimes I'll see you in the hall and then I'll see like the other teachers. Sometimes you see them sitting in chairs in the hallway, or like I guess as security people, you see them in the hallway and you can also ask them questions or like how to get somewhere or different things.
I'm going to yield to Mrs. Ruskavich and just ask her: are there any items or any things that we have not mentioned, or because of course as a guidance counselor you have probably a clearer understanding than anyone of the freshman experience and maybe the common problems that freshmen may have. And really a keen knowledge of the freshman experience. I don't know if there's anything that we haven't discussed at this point that the parent or of an 8th grader or an 8th grader themselves may be interested in hearing.
Well, we touched on the academics and the time management and the getting involved. Also, the social aspect of school, getting people. Sometimes you're meeting a lot of new people from the other middle school, okay, and maybe you're changing groups of friends. Have you found any of that experience where you're actually in the process of making new friends, you're changing, meeting new people, having different interests? Have you found that to be difficult, that transition socially?
Not difficult. I made a lot of new friends, but I also kept my old friends, so it wasn't hard to make new friends. Everybody was like looking to make new friends.
Okay.
So.
And also by there being 2 middle schools, you also get to and have other friends from like Terrell Middle. Like I'm from Park, and a lot of kids from Terrell Middle School I didn't know, and I'm friends with them now. So it's also good.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think it was difficult. I think it was good. Making new friends was good, and I mean, any of the friends that you might lose during the first weeks of school, they probably weren't your real friends if you lost them. So that didn't really matter. And the more friends you have and the more new friends you make, the easier school becomes, as far as social life goes.
When I found out, I got to school the first day, I found out a lot of my friends had different classes than me. And they go down different hallways. Some of my friends I haven't seen since the beginning of the year. And I haven't exactly lost them, but I was forced to make new friends, which was good actually, because now I have a lot of good friends. So sometimes it helps.
It's a learning experience.
Yeah, sometimes it helps.
There's no there's not like a big popular group that's like you're forced to like live up to their standards, because it was smaller in Park Middle School, and so like the groups were more dissected, and now it's kind of like you hang out with who you want to hang out with, not like who was most popular or whatever. So there's not like a big change, diversity in the people. It's just
Okay.
Right. Tell you the last question I'm going to ask you before we begin to wrap things up, and that is if you could give an 8th grader or the parent of an 8th grader advice, what would you say? What advice would you give an 8th grader? Just Eileen?
definitely be organized. You need to be organized to keep yourself ahead of the ball, to be with where your teacher's going. So definitely keep your things neat.
Okay. Crystal?
Don't be worried. Because I was worried the first few days, and I was like, I'm not going to get to my classes on time. My teacher's going to hate me. But I got in, and I was still worried, and everything went fine. Kind of just disappeared. So don't be worried, and to the parents, don't make your kids worried, because my parents were freaking out over high school. So kind of made me a little more nervous than I should have been.
Okay.
That's basically the same advice I would give. I would say, don't be worried. Enjoy your summer of 8th grade. Don't sweat the high school. Don't worry about it at all. When you come to the high school, everything's going to work itself out. And as long as you're a good student and you want the high school, it's all about what you want. If you want the high school to be good, then it's going to be good. If you don't want to have good high school experience, then it's not going to be good high school experience. That's basically the way it goes. So if you don't worry about it, it's all going to work itself out in the end. It's all going to be fine.
Okay, good. Steve?
I agree. You don't have to worry. You should just be happy. And those little blue books that you gave us to put our homework in, you should really use those because they are coming a lot of help.
The agenda.
The
okay.
agenda books, yeah.
Good.
Really
Good.
good.
I'm glad to hear that. I've heard that. I heard that from a number of students. So, and teachers too. Teachers have those as well. So that's great. All right, good. Jamie.
Also, you have to be open to change. You can't expect everything to be exactly how it was in middle school, because it's definitely not going to be. You're not going to like hang out with the exactly same people. Like the academic work's not going to be exactly the same. So you just have to be ready to like move on to new things.
Okay, good. Darren.
Like, and also you just, like how they say you have butterflies in your stomach, like in the first day of school, like before I came to school, I was kind of worried about like who like some of my friends gonna be in my classes and if I won't be able to get to certain classes. And as the school year and the week went on, it got easier and I met new friends, and it just don't be worried.
Okay. So that seems like the common theme to parents and to 8th graders is not to worry. Now, what shouldn't they worry about? And we'll begin to close on this. What were your worries? I mean, what were you really concerned about? I mean, maybe it's the same concerns that some of the viewers have here. Crystal?
I heard a lot of horror stories about the seniors chasing freshmen and beating them up, and I got here and I was a little worried about that happening on the first day because I'm weak, so couldn't fight back. But nobody was like that. I was really surprised, but in a way not surprised. I don't know how to explain that. So don't worry about that. Don't worry about the horror stories you hear because they're probably just rumors.
Okay, good.
And also how before I came to high school, I used to watch a show called Saved by the Bell, and how I always thought that since that was in high school, how like different schools be rivalries and like other schools like come to your school and like vandalize and like throw paper towels and stuff
Steal the
around
mascot.
it and steal different things, but so it's not like that. So.
Okay, good. Jane?
I was also scared that I was going to get lost. It's a lot easier than it looks, though. It's actually not hard to do.
Okay, good. It's a big place, but it's easy to get around. It really is. Once you learn, it's pretty easy to get around.
A comment like that. What Jamie said, you know how, well, all 8th graders are going to know this, how the first time you walked into the middle school, you thought how big it was, and then suddenly 2 weeks after school started, you were like, how did I think this was big? It's so small. I know where everything is. It's going to be the same way in the high school. But like I was going to say before, I wasn't really worried, but a lot of my friends were worried about the work and the amount of work that there was going to be. And there is a lot more work, but as long as you keep it under control and try and keep up with it, then you don't have to worry about that.
Did we get everyone? Anyone want to? Steve?
I was really worried about missing the bus after school in the beginning of the year. But once I figured out who the bus driver was and what bus I was going on, it came easy to go what one to go on, because one time I missed the bus and it wasn't so good.
Well, first of all, I think the students here did an excellent job, and I appreciate the input. And I think any parents that were watching, or any 8th graders that were watching, I think they would have benefited, and I hope you did benefit from the feedback that you got from these freshmen, soon to be sophomores. It won't be long, and you'll be a sophomore. And your high school years are going to go fast. You're going to be a senior before you know it. But did a good job, and I also want to thank Mrs. Rascavage, because of course the guidance department plays an integral role in every aspect of the high school, and certainly in the 9th grade experience in the transition. And from what I'm hearing, we do a pretty good job, and because all of you have adapted very well and seem to be having an excellent experience, and I'm really glad to hear that. So we are about out of time, and I'd like to thank our guests as I just did, and thank the students and Mrs. Rascavage, And for conversation, this is Dave Heisey. Thank you very much for watching.